Sometimes people achieve what they're aiming for, but every once in a while, it's snatched from right under your nose. This happened to Novak Djokovic, who's considered one of the best players in tennis. The 35-year-old was one match away from making history, but fate had other plans. In this video, we'll be taking a look at Novak Djokovic talking about the crowd on the day of his loss against Daniil Medvedev, so stay tuned. First up, Novak Djokovic had been doing great in 2021. It's common for athletes to face difficulties in their careers, and it's something that happens to the best of them. After all, professional sports are competitive enough to overwhelm anyone and everyone. Novak Djokovic is no exception to this rule. In 2021, he was a man on a mission, continuously winning match after match. He started his season off with an incredible win at the Australian Open, his 9th win at that particular tournament. And then he went on to win his second French Open. Of course, he didn't stop there. Instead, the tennis player left his fans in awe as he continued on to secure yet another Wimbledon title after an intense match with Matteo Berrettini to add to his previous 5. Just when everyone thought it was over, he won the ATP Cup after he played the finals against Alexander Zverev, a 5-setter at that. Now everybody was holding their breath. Novak was just one victory away from a calendar Grand Slam, one of the ultimate milestones in tennis, and of course, one that only the best can achieve. This feat has only been achieved a total of 6 times by 5 players. Steffi Graf was the last player to win all 4 Grand Slams in a calendar year, and that was in 1988. But things don't always go the way everyone expects them to go. And just as the tennis player was so close to achieving the ultimate tennis glory, everything started to go downhill. Now, for Novak losing one of the most important matches of his life. The pressure of just what he was about to achieve finally caught up to Novak, and it ended with him suffering what may have been his career's toughest and most impactful loss. After playing the whole tournament and winning match after match, he finally started cracking under said pressure and played well below what everyone had been expecting. This isn't to say, of course, that his own performance was the only reason Novak lost. No, that's a credit that goes to Daniil Medvedev. He was also a man on a mission, a man who was desperate to finally secure his first major crown and too close to his dream to let go of the perfect chance. And let go he didn't. Novak was even able to win one set against him, and soon enough, he had claimed an incredible 6-4, 6-4, 6-4 victory. But of course, Daniil didn't go home without knowing and acknowledging that he had just stopped history from being written. Or maybe he just added his own part to it. Though he did have some words for Novak, he told him despite the fact this wasn't something he would say to anyone, to him, Novak was the greatest player of all time. Following up, he had a lot of support from the crowd. And of course, Novak also had a lot of support from the crowd. Most of them had come there to watch him achieve the 7th ever calendar Grand Slam. But even after his loss, instead of being disappointed, they still attempted to cheer him on. The tennis player was understandably emotional after seeing the whole of Arthur Ashe Stadium and later talked about just how he felt seeing the display of support. For then, though, he was content to bathe in the relief of finally finishing the stressful journey and hoped to win more titles in the future and maybe another chance to attempt another calendar Grand Slam. He said that over the years, after facing so many losses among the many wins, he's learned to deal with them. Instead of taking them as a bad omen, he looked at them as another opportunity to grow. So he could argue that this specific loss had arrived at what may have been the worst or the best time for him. Of course, that doesn't mean he wasn't disappointed about the loss, but more that he felt absolutely blessed to be able to experience the love and support from the crowd that day, an experience he hadn't ever felt before in New York or even in many other places around the world. Lastly, Novak talks about the crowd in the stadium. Novak mentioned that the energy he had received from the crowd the second he had stepped onto the court was a type of win for him he won't ever forget. They had caught the tennis player by surprise, who hadn't been expecting much love and support for him from the crowd, and let's just say he was very touched. He said that maybe the environment had also been what had influenced his game. Novak is widely known as a very controversial tennis player who rebels a lot. This has led one too many times to him playing for a hostile crowd, as if he wasn't only playing tennis against his opponent, but also the audience themselves. But this time, that hadn't been the case, and maybe it had played a part in throwing him off, as everyone knew he was supposed to win that match. But regardless, Novak was still very thankful to the crowd for the support that they had shown him that day. Novak said that, of course, in the ideal setting, he would have gotten the calendar Grand Slam, but that isn't how things worked out. Still, just knowing that he had gotten so close gave him hope that he would be able to achieve it sometime in the future. Until then, Novak will be going back to the practice court because no matter how good of a player you are, there's always something to improve. Now, moving on to Novak talking about Carlos Alcaraz and Rafael Nadal. First off, Novak says that Carlos Alcaraz deserves to be number 1. Carlos Alcaraz is currently on the top of the tennis world. The 19-year-old first made his appearance not so long ago, and since then, he's taken the tennis world by storm. He's no doubt talented, something he's shown through his wins against legendary players. Novak is among the many who think that the teenager is deserving of the title he's worked hard to get, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have any competition. He may be on top of his world for now, but Novak's sure that Rafael will soon make an attempt to dethrone the king. This will, of course, lead to Carlos needing to put up an even greater struggle if he wants to keep his title. Novak said that Carlos was the #1 tennis player, and that meant he was the best, at least for now. There was no denying that fact, as the rankings showed it clear as day. Of course, Carlos and Rafael's current rankings were affected by Novak playing less. Things could have been different in several circumstances, but that was just a what if, and the reality was that Novak was in 7th place, Rafael at 2nd, and a 19-year-old higher than them both. Moving on, Rafael Nadal may still be the season-ending #1. Not that the tennis player minded, of course, he rather it was him, but said that the 19-year-old had earned his place there, and Novak was quick to congratulate him for everything he had achieved. In his opinion, all the milestones that Carlos had achieved were incredible on their own, but it was even greater that he had done all this at such a young age. After all, young athletes having so many historic moments and milestones brought not only attention to the athlete themselves, but the whole tennis community, and in the end, they all benefited from it. Even so, it just wasn't guaranteed that he would be the season-ending #1. That particular title could be Rafael's. Only time will tell who gets to remain on top, but no doubt the #2 has a very good chance. Last but not least, why Rafael may still have a chance. Rafael is considered to be one of the best players in tennis history, along with, of course, Novak himself and Roger Federer. Maybe sometime Carlos will also join them, but for now, the stage is theirs, or at least Novak and Rafael's, seeing that Roger has retired. Not to mention the world #2 is only 920 points behind the younger, and to add to his disadvantage, Carlos won't be defending any points at the ATP Finals or the Paris Masters. So it's understandable that Novak believes Rafael has a very good chance of taking the #1 title from Carlos by the time the end of the year comes around. But then again, the 19-year-old may manage to put up a fight, even if it's only until he's sure he can hold on to the #1 rankings till the end. That's a wrap for this video. What did you think of Novak's loss and his reaction to the crowd? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.